To the north of Lost Ugair along the Athwart River was Aakow, the last of the Twilight Era civilizations. Aakow, and more broadly Horjon, were river-based tribal civilizations between the Athwart River and the Zaki River. There were 5 tribes in Aakow: Ushu, Juhijink, Damuk, Itherud, and Aakow itself, while Horjon was its own separate large tribe. These 6 tribes worshipped a deity known as Unima'u, an avian god of light, fire, temperance, dusk and dawn, life and death, and that Unima'u was supposedly a living, though silent god who lived on Mount Chea'u, the highest mountain in the Oidigao Mountains. The tribes were all ruled by an elder council of an elder from each of the 5 tribes of Aakow, but not Horjon, and they ruled as a theocratic oligarchy over the people of Aakow. These elders were based within the small city of Aakow, located where modern-day Aakow still stands at the intersection of the Athwart River and the Horjon River. The Elder Council of Aakow, despite having a negative reputation, more as a result of propaganda and unlucky history rather than incompetence or evil, was generally a beloved and respected piece of Aakow society. Each Elder Councilor essentially served as the sovereign of their respective tribe, and would only meet together in Aakow City to discuss trade, diplomacy, and religious issues as a collective, so that they could better direct their respective tribes and the cult of Unima'u as a whole. The Elder Counselors were viewed as hierophants and mediators, interpreting and studying the will of Unima'u for the benefit of greater society. Becoming an Elder Counselor was generally a hereditary matter, with every replacement being the son of the previous, with rare exceptions. This doesn't mean that the position was just handed to the son, for before becoming an Elder Counselor, they would have to undergo a rigorous series of rituals and tests to prepare them for and ensure that they were worthy of the position. Heirs were often prepared for the majority of their young life to undergo these trials and fill that position due to how strenuous and dangerous they were. The city of Aakow was still rather advanced for its time. They had sandstone and wooden buildings, copper tools and weapons from the Oidigao Mountains, farms and agriculture thanks to lush land around the rivers, governance thanks to the Elder Council, fishing boats, and so forth, even if the city was used mostly as a location for the tribes to congregate for religious rituals and advice from the Elder Council. The rituals of more ancient Aakow were quite brutal and almost similar to the ideals of introspection in terms of cruelty. The people of Aakow had an affinity for fire and the sun, and would often sacrifice dissenters and kidnapped foreign tribesmen to burn in fires to Unima'u, or to force them to watch the sun until they were completely blind, or burnt them with hot copper, branding them as slaves. Seeing burn marks on someone in Aakow was a common sight to behold. They also had a cultural affinity for warm colors. They only ever wore shades of red, yellow, orange, and white, and they shunned any other colors, viewing anything else as superstitious. Horjon, despite sharing a similar faith, were far less extreme in their ideals, which is likely one of the major reasons why the people of Horjon were generally outcasted and seen as lesser by the more radical people of Aakow. The people of Aakow and Horjon were much more outwardly active during the Twilight Era than they were in the Dawn Era. While they were basically impenetrable thanks to the rivers and mountains, they launched sorties across into other lands where they raided, pillaged, and kidnapped all along the Athwart River, towards the Uyish Uina, into the Oidigao Mountains, and against the tribes of Antithesis, who they hated the most. They fought basically perpetually in the name of Unima'u, and burned everything they could get their hands on to Unima'u. Most of the food, most of the people, most of the animals, most of the precious and uncommon food, and most of the metals were all burnt down, and surely the people of Aakow suffered for this deliberate destruction. It is within Aakow where the foundational myth for the start of the Dawn Era began. According to Aakow legend, a man named Ashekar, who was born of the tribe of Juhijink, wished to climb Mount Chea'u and speak to Unima'u, breaking the silence with their god. Ashekar was labeled as a fool and a heretic, and was exiled from Greater Aakow. Ashekar, in exile, fled to Horjon, where he was welcomed and even encouraged by the locals to carry out his dreams. For years, Ashekar trained and prepared for the hard journey up the tallest peak on Achotha until one day he finally began his journey. For months, Ashekar climbed the mountains alone and poorly equipped, Yet through some miracle, he reached the peak of the world, though within an inch of his life. At the arrival of a Sheker, Unima'u was shocked, yet impressed and sympathetic, and would do something never before witnessed. Unima'u healed the ailments of a Sheker and kept him warm with a brilliant light, and then spoke to him in a song of light and flame for many days. By the end of the song, a Sheker was gifted the knowledge of irrigation, writing, and metallurgy, and the much more divine powers of Ufieldma, which according to the cult of Unima'u could allow someone to control light and fire at their fingertips. A Sheker, with his newfound knowledge and powers of Ufieldma, returned to Aakow, where he was crowned King Asheka I of the 5 tribes of Aakow, and the Dawn Era was declared, beginning the true intrigue and impact of Aakow civilization and the official start of history and civilization on Achotha.